Welcome to the Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast, where host and lacrosse expert Jamie Monroe will do what he does best, talk about lacrosse. Each episode will provide listeners with education, insights, stories, and lessons about the lacrosse world. We will discuss current events, coaching, philosophies, and college lacrosse recruiting. Now let's get started with your host, Jamie Monroe.
The Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast is brought to you by JM3 Sports. Go to www.jm3video.com to get more information on the JM3 video assessment tool.
What up? Everybody, welcome to the Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast. Today, we're lucky enough to have Mark Burnam, a.k.a. Red Burnam. He's the head coach at IMG Academy. He's also the head coach of the Iroquois Nationals, preparing to go and compete for a world championship. Red, it's just so awesome to have you on board the podcast. How's everything going?
Good. Glad to be here, man.
That's awesome.
Just down in sunny Florida. We're out about 2 weeks away from going to Israel. Hopefully have a decent team to bring there. We're looking forward to being there and excited to show what we got.
Love it. Now, before we get into a couple things, I just want people – there are going to be listeners in here that know you very well. There's going to be some that don't. I want to set the tone right away. How many rings have you won? I've seen the picture, but I can't remember if it's 13 or 15 or what.
It's actually 14.
14 rings.
Yeah, and then one high school. The high school one, you didn't get a ring back when I played. They had electricity just starting then, so they were they went with a medallion for the New York State.
We're talking New York high school state championship.
Yep, when there was only one state championship, I got to add. Now, back in the day, there wasn't A, B, C, D class and all that. I mean, it was, like it is now. I mean, obviously the sport's grown a ton. So
who'd you play for?
Played for Henniger High School.
And who'd you beat? Who'd you beat?
Yorktown, which many of my teammates come from there. Timmy Nelson and the Nelson boys and a few of other guys. And now you see Colarusso, who's a goalie, and we played against that group. His father played. And, there was Timmy Scher was on that team and Tommy Nelson. I mean, there were some stud players back in that team. And, at the time, we had only had lacrosse at my high school 5 years. So within 5 years, that athletic group went from ninth grade to their senior year. And within 5 years, they're winning the state championship, which is like kind of Cinderella's story. But it was literally probably the most athletic athletes that I ever played on in any team to this day.
All right, so you won a New York State high school championship. You went on to Syracuse, win the 1982
83
NBA national championship. 83
and then 84, we lost in the finals. And then in the Hopkins 85, we lost again. There was could have had a couple rings there, and to lose your senior year and be undefeated and be number one in the country. That was at that time. That's when Hopkins was really, on that real big rush, and Syracuse wasn't even mentioned in those championship days back then. It was just basically,
Hopkins, North Carolina, Virginia.
Yeah, exactly.
But, in 83, we just got to talk about the fact that if I recall, you guys were down 12-5 in the third quarter and came back and won that game. And your Yorktown former competitor and at the time teammate Timmy Nelson had a big day, and Brad Kotz had 5 second-half goals or something.
He did, and just for you guys now to know, Brad Kotz and myself were both face-off guys, but we were two-way middies. The guy that he played on first midfield. Brad Kotz, probably one of the best shooters around with. Basically a girl stick, could shoot both hands. I mean, if you've seen the thing, there was absolutely no pocket in the thing. He was an amazing shooter. He was very deceivingly fast, and he faced off and did really well, and was MVP. Which I'll bet you $1 million. You show me a face-off guy in a national championship that scores 5 goals. It's unheard of now.
Yeah, unbelievable. Okay, so now you also won a Minto Cup Championship, which is the Junior A national championship in Canada. Probably is that not the most coveted championship that there is?
Yeah, it is. I absolutely think it is. That or your senior A championship, which was basically the pros back in the day before the pros happened. And then playing in the Mill League, MLL championship. We won a couple of those with Buffalo, and then went on to Rochester and played another one. And it just I was fortunate enough to play on very, very good teams and some really, really great lacrosse players. And, you know, it's funny that I think about it now, and we talked about this before, Jamie, you know, at 3D a few times there, and you were like, how many rings do you have? And I just, like, I don't really wear them. And my wife laughed.
No fingers.
It's yeah, and I'm sure there's a guy out there, or a couple of guys out there that has more, but I don't know about. The only one I haven't won that I know of is an indoor box international championship. We lost to Canada twice in those, and I played in that. And obviously the World Championships. I finally got a medal in the World Championships as a coach in 14, and I'd never medaled, and you know. That was one, to me, to this day, I'll never win as a player. But, you know, hopefully someday maybe I get it as a coach, you know, being that silver or gold.
How many Man Cup championships did you win?
2.
How many Mintos?
2.
2. And how many presidents?
Oh, geez. Presidents, 4.
So that's the Senior B National Championship.
That is, yeah. And then
what about founders?
1 founders.
1 founder. So that's a Junior B National Championship.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that Senior B has pro lacrosse players playing.
It's all pros.
It's all pros.
It's all pros. And most of the time at that time, you know, obviously you played for the Buffalo Bandits in Rochester and all that. You won a championship. In the summer, you played Senior B or you played Senior A. And that's all that was available. So even when the outdoor pro leagues were starting up at the end of my career, I played in the World Games until 2006. So I had played in 5 of them.
5 World Games.
Yeah, right in a row. I was a captain of all 5 of them. And then from 90 to 2006, I was 46 years old covering Mikey Powell straight out of college. So I'll never forget this. John Desco was the coach, and it was in London, Ontario. He says to me, the defensive coordinator comes up to me for the Iroquois and says, Red, who do you want to cover? And it was myself, Marshall Abrams, you know, Defensive Player of the Year at Syracuse, a D1 stud, All-American.
Yes.
Sid Smith was the other defenseman, and then you know, we had 3 Syracuse guys, and then actually a 4th with Travis Solomon at the time, but he ended up, you know, passing away. Our great friend Travis. So we actually had a whole Syracuse defense playing against a whole Syracuse attack. So they said to me, the boys, they go, Red, who you covering? And you got Mikey, you got Ryan, or you got Casey. Which one do you want? So I'm the oldest guy on the team by probably 20 years. And they're looking at me, and they're like, you cover Casey, or you cover Mikey. Kid's lightning. So I'm the oldest guy covering the fastest guy and the youngest guy. So to me, I came back and had to check myself a little bit, you know, and go out there. And then Casey walked up to me and started laughing. He goes, Mikey, I'm glad he's covering you and not me. And,
you always were pretty fast, though. The story that you tell about the time. Tell me the story where you accidentally like cross-checked John Grant Sr. in the teeth.
Oh, geez, God, that was an accident, because you don't do that on purpose. Not that big man. If anyone knows John Grant Sr., he's probably 6'6", I'm going to say, on a bad day, slumping over. And we were playing down at Philadelphia Forum. And at that time, all you wore was basically a plastic mouth guard over the front of your lips. And
it was like an NFL kicker?
Exactly. Like the one bar, but we had no bars. And he had a wide open mask, I remember. And I may be wrong, but maybe Mr. Grant doesn't have a tooth or so, maybe at the time missing, or I'm not positive. But he was the best behind-the-back passer. And, you know, he was tall and lean and lanky. Unlike his son is, you know, more muscular, shorter stature, but a bigger guy, you know. And I think I was just going to be a senior in high school or was going to Syracuse at the time and just won a championship. And I was piss and vinegar and thought I was a badass, you know. And I started chasing him around the forum, and I went to cross-check him. And he's so tall, he kind of leaned over, and it just slid up, and I smoked him right in the lips, and he got mad. And I looked up, and he was bleeding a little bit, and he started chasing me around, and he chased me behind the goal and up the sidelines and this and that. And I ran over and he goes, "You're a fast son of a bitch and you're a lucky bastard." And I got to the bench. They go, "Jesus Christ, you know who that is?" I go, "No, but that guy's madder than hell at me. I just checked him in the lips and he wants to kill me." And I ran around the whole game trying to avoid being beaten to death by that man. But that was one of those deals where you were in awe of a person like that. Was kind of an idol at the time, and I was just happy to be out there and fortunate enough to play against somebody that good.
It's unreal, man. And so give us a quick bio. So you graduated from Syracuse in '85, and you've obviously been lacrosse has been a huge part of your life all the way through. So, but just give us a rundown on where you've coached and where you've played along the way. The quick elevator speech there.
I played in the pro league and started in '87. Played in it was actually called the New Jersey Saints at that time, and I had played on the reservation before that in Syracuse, and then went on to play a bunch of years in Buffalo '92, '93 team, and on to Rochester in the later '90s. I took a year off, then I went to Syracuse after that little run, the Syracuse Smash, and I think that was '99. We stopped, and then I kept playing. I kept staying on the world team, and then in between all those games, I would either play senior A or senior B, and obviously after your junior years. But right out of high school and right to college, and I honestly just stayed in shape and tried to make it almost like after a while it was starting to get to be a joke. I captained that team for '90, our very first year as the Iroquois Nationals, and I was like, well, we got one or two national players on here that were D1 guys, so I wanted to see if I could play in another one, and I played with my brothers. And after the second one or third one, and then the fourth one, they're like, "Are you going to try out again?" And then after the fifth one, and I played indoors, I said, "Man." I played actually for Darius Kilgore for the world team for indoors. I think that was '02, I believe. These run back and forth, but
you played with him and for him over the years.
Yeah, I played with him in Rochester or Buffalo, and then he stayed there obviously and went on to coach. But it was weird leaving because half our team had won the '92, '93 teams. We won those back to back, and a bunch of our guys left and went on to Rochester as an expansion team, and then we ended up winning it in Rochester one year, and then like Randy Mearns and some other guys who coached. And obviously, Randy's the head coach of the Canadian team who won a gold in '06 as well, or 14. And then, just to have some of those guys play with you, be with you, leave that area, go away, and actually become really good friends to this day. I just kept playing as much as I could. And then I ended up coaching in high school in Western New York. I coached so many teams. I coached at Niagara Wheatfield High School. I had gone to Niagara on the Lake, coached box lacrosse for all those years. Even on the senior A team, when we played in Akwesasne the first year, I was a player, and along with John Tavares and our coach halfway through the year ended up quitting, or something happened. He couldn't do it for work, and I was actually like a player coach for that 1 year that Akwesasne had a senior A team, which we played. We had won a number of President Cups in the early '90s, right in a row. And then we just said, well, geez, we won 2, 3, 4 in a row. We ended up going senior A, and I ended up coaching that team halfway through the year and playing what's that movie there, Slapshot? Reggie Dunlop, player coach. and we had we had a bunch of players. We ended up playing Peterborough with Johnny Grant Jr. and a senior A championship for the 7-game series. We ended up beating them, and then eventually losing to Brampton, who had won the Eastern, and they beat us in a 6-game series, I believe, at that time. And they went out to actually win it out west, which could have got another ring if we had done that. And that would have been a hell of a deal where a first-year team comes into the senior A, a coach leaves, you're coaching and playing, and you win the Man Cup. I mean, that would be a Cinderella story right there. But
pretty good.
We went on. But now I'm coaching. I've coached high school in Florida for the last 3 years at IMG Academy. Got a hell of a team, bunch of players here. Nanico played for us, and Jared Fernandez gone on to we've had some great players. There's some guys that are playing that are sorry about that as well. So I coached high school in Carolinas, and then I've had numerous offers with the college. I kind of wanted to stay with high school until my kids graduated. That's probably why I didn't do it. And I was doing my own thing with my own business, and now there's opportunities. Obviously, I'm coaching the Iroquois men's national team.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Are you getting fired up for the World Games or what?
Man, we're 2 weeks out. Got a conference call tonight. Just we were going to get a little mini camp going this weekend. Too many people that, some of the issues we have with our team, not many people know is half of our team works and can't get away, and they're all in different areas. Some are out in California, Canada, the logistics of it. Just to get the 23 guys together is insane. It's probably the biggest determining factor of why we don't pick the team so early, because when we do, it ends up being that person goes away or gets a job or can't do it or gets injured or whatever the reason. So our logistics really hammer us, even though we're in the Northeast. It's crazy. So we're really excited to get ready, getting ready to go. Like I said, conference call tonight, kind of going over just some do's and don'ts and some dotting the I's and hopefully getting this.
Hey, walk us through the roster a little bit.
Look at there's no secrets. Iroquois National are going to have a good offense. Always have. The issue we've always had, I played for the Iroquois Nationals my first 3 World Games as a face-off midi / midfielder. Now, we mostly went 2-way middies, our guys, and just like I did in college. After the 3rd or 4th World Games, I got sick of we don't have any defensemen. We had a goalie at the time because he played D1, but you only had 1 guy or 2 guys. That's it. That's all you chose from. That's it. You're not going there and going, well, we got 12 goalies we got to look at today. You're going, it's either him or him. That's it. Right? And if he's not doing anything after college, he probably hasn't seen shots in 2 years. Okay? So every 4 years, there's not a college goalie coming out of D1 Virginia or, Denver or Syracuse or whatever, or the Hopkins goalie's a native kid. It's just not happening. Yeah. And neither is the face-off guy, and neither is all the 4 poles or 5 poles or LSM. So you go to this thing going, all right, I'll play defense. And that's how I started playing defense for Iroquois Nationals. The 1 year I did it, I did really well in it. I think I had 7 goals as a long pole. I don't know if anyone's ever scored 7 goals as a long pole in the World Games. If they did, I want to know who it is. And I faced off them games with the long pole against guys like Gary Gate and Paul Gate. And at that time, there was no real Fogos per se. There was for Australia. And then they would have a stick that was bent to basically you can't beat them because it was literally just a stiff, shot.
Gordon Purdy.
Yeah, and Gordon Purdy, who might have played in the most World Games. I'm not positive. He's probably played in 6 or 7 himself. And but to go out there and then just say, this is the same thing we're experiencing from 1990 to 2018. We have those deep holes now. We unfortunately had 2 guys get injured, both play for an Albany. One was my nephew, Colin Lyons, ACL, and another kid named Round Point, which would have been 2 D1 guys that actually played D1 and played defense, as opposed to 2 D1 guys that played midfield or faced off and played defense.
Yeah.
And like a kid like Tyson Bonberry, who's going to be on there. And, when you go to the tryout, you have basically your best athlete, if you can do it, or a guy who may have to do a different role, similar to what I did, just try out and say, listen, you play box lacrosse, you play cross-check defense, we're going to put a pole in your hand. But the slides are so much different. The whole game is different. So we haven't had that, obviously, that, how you would say, fortunate luck to have that type of player come to our team, where now we're starting to experience it more and more. Yeah.
So who are the notable guys that are not going to be able to play for you guys? You were telling me that some of the, it's like it's a little up in the air as to some of your better athletes. So who's not playing that could really help you out?
Oh, God. 2 that come to mind are 2 of the best players in college D1 lacrosse, and you guys know their names. Zed Williams, be one of them. And, obviously we talked about our other one, and Zach Miller. He's a Denver star. I spoke to Matty Brown, who's on that staff, and he said he's one of the best players, if not the best player he's ever coached. He won't be on the team, and he was in 14, and and one other kid we were going to take a good look at, and he was a little bit banged up, was Patterson, who had a hell of a year for Albany.
Oh, yeah.
He was a good lefty, and I thought he broke down middies really well, and thought we could use him, and a pretty good sniper. But those three, and obviously the couple of guys I spoke of as the defenseman, Colin Lyons and Ground Point is the other one who tore his ACL right before the season for Albany, and both actually happened to be Albany players, and one was actually my nephew, and they're both obviously at their chances, but they won't be able to do it. And
you guys, it's amazing when you look at Native Americans and the amount of world-class players that the reservations are pumping out into the world on a per capita basis is off the charts. I mean, if you think about it, we were talking about this earlier, how many total players are there, on all the reservations, and then look at how many world-class players that we can define as, let's just say, pros, right? And what do those numbers look like? I mean, it seems like it's insane.
If for the viewers that don't know, Six Nations is actually the Iroquois Six Nations. Okay, there's only a group of people that go from Six Nations, which is in Brantford area,
of Ontario.
Yep, Ontario, and Quebec is Ganawage is right in Montreal, and then down to Cornwall where Akwesasne is, and then you have Onondaga in the middle of the Syracuse area, all the way to the Senecas and the Tuscaroras, and then Tonawanda as well. So we've I coached high school in Carolinas, and then I've had numerous offers with the college. I kind of wanted to stay with high school until my kids graduated. That's probably why I didn't do it, and I was doing my own thing with my own business, and now there's opportunities. Obviously, I'm coaching the Iroquois men's national team.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Are you getting fired up for the World Games or what?
Man, we're 2 weeks out. Got a conference call tonight. Just where we're going to get a little mini camp going this weekend. Too many people that some of the issues we have with our team. Not many people know is half of our team works and can't get away, and they're all in different areas. Some are out in California, Canada. The logistics of it. Just to get the 23 guys together is insane. It's probably the biggest determining factor of why we don't pick the team so early, because when we do, it ends up being that person goes away or gets a job or can't do it or gets injured or whatever the reason. So our logistics really hammer us, even though we're in the Northeast. It's crazy. So we're really excited to get ready. Getting ready to go. Like I said, conference call tonight, kind of going over just some do's and don'ts and some dotting the I's, and hopefully getting this.
Hey, walk us through the roster a little bit.
Look at there's no secrets. Iroquois National are going to have a good offense. Always have. The issue we've always had, I played for the Iroquois Nationals my first 3 World Games as a face-off midi / midfielder. No, we mostly went two-way middies, our guys, and just like I did in college. After the 3rd or 4th World Games, I got sick of we don't have any defensemen. We had a goalie at the time because he played D1, but you only had one guy or 2 guys. That's it. That's all you chose from. That's it. You're not going there and going, well, we got 12 goalies we got to look at today. You're going, it's either him or him. That's it. Right? And if he's not doing anything after college, he probably hasn't seen shots in 2 years. Okay, so every 4 years, there's not a college goalie coming out of D1 Virginia or Denver or Syracuse or whatever, or the Hopkins goalie's a native kid. It's just not happening. Yeah. And neither is the face-off guy, and neither is all the 4 poles or 5 poles or LSM. So you go to this thing going, all right. I'll play defense. And that's how I started playing defense for Iroquois Nationals. The 1 year I did it, I did really well in it. I think I had 7 goals as a long pole. I don't know if anyone's ever scored 7 goals as a long pole in the World Games. If they did, I want to know who it is. And I faced off them games with the long pole against guys like Gary Gate and Paul Gate. And at that time, there was no real Fogos per se, There was for Australia. And then they would have a stick that was bent to basically you can't beat them because it was literally just a stiff,
shot. Gordon Purdy.
Yeah, and Gordon Purdy, who might have played in the most world games. I'm not positive. He's probably played in 6 or 7 himself. And but to go out there and then just say, this is the same thing we're experiencing from 1990 to 2018. We have those deep holes now. We unfortunately had 2 guys get injured, both play for Albany. One was my nephew, Colin Lyons, ACL, and another kid named Round Point, which would have been 2 D1 guys that actually played D1 and played defense, as opposed to 2 D1 guys that played midfield or faced off and played defense.
Yeah.
And like a kid like Tyson Bonberry, who's going to be on there. And, when you go to the tryout, you have basically your best athlete, if you can do it, or a guy who may have to do a different role, similar to what I did. Just try out and say, listen, you play box lacrosse, you play cross-check defense, we're going to put a pole in your hand. But the slides are so much different. The whole game is different. So we haven't had that, obviously, that, how you would say, fortunate luck to have that type of player come to our team, where now we're starting to experience it more and more.
Yeah. So who are the notable guys that are not going to be able to play for you guys? You were telling me that some of the, it's like it's a little up in the air as to some of your better athletes. So who's not playing that could really help you out?
Oh, God. 2 that come to mind are 2 of the best players in college D1 lacrosse, and you guys know their names. Zed Williams, be one of them. And, obviously we talked about our other one, and Zach Miller. I mean, he's a Denver star. I spoke to Matty Brown, who's on that staff, and he said he's one of the best players, if not the best player he's ever coached. He won't be on the team, and he was in 14, and and one other kid we were going to take a good look at, and he was a little bit banged up, was Patterson, who had a hell of a year for Albany.
Oh, yeah.
He was a good lefty, and I thought he broke down middies really well, and thought we could use him, and a pretty good sniper. But those 3, and obviously the couple of guys I spoke of as the defenseman, Colin Lyons, and Round Point is the other one who tore his ACL right before the season for Albany, and both actually happened to be Albany players, and one was actually my nephew, and they're both obviously at their chances, but they won't be able to do it. And
you guys, it's amazing when you look at Native Americans and the amount of world-class players that the reservations are pumping out into the world on a per capita basis is off the charts. I mean, if you think about it, we were talking about this earlier, how many total players are there, on all the reservations, and then look at how many world-class players that we can define as, let's just say, pros, right? And what do those numbers look like? I mean, it seems like it's insane.
If for the viewers that don't know, 6 Nations is actually the Iroquois 6 Nations. Okay, there's only a group of people that go from 6 Nations, which is in Brantford area,
of Ontario.
Yep, Ontario, and Quebec is Ganawage is right in Montreal, and then down to Cornwall where Akwesasne is, and then you have Onondaga in the middle of the Syracuse area, all the way to the Senecas and the Tuscaroras, and then Tonawanda's in the middle, and the Naida's in the middle of that, in between the Syracuse, the Rochester area, and out of those 6 Nations, we probably have total, and I'm talking about kids, men playing, people in the pros, people trying out, playing in leagues, past players, this and that, playing box, playing senior A, senior B. Right now, we were trying to figure out a number, which, it's kind of mind-boggling that we might only have 15 to 2,000 players playing, and 30 to 40 of them to choose from at the world-class level. Out of the 1,500, probably 1,000 to 1,200 or maybe 1,600 of those are kids. And we only probably have 300 or less. Probably, we honestly, I had the tryouts. We didn't have 300 people try out, okay? We didn't have 300 people try out. We didn't have 130 people try out, okay? it was probably more along the numbers of 40 to 60 that you could actually, obviously you played before, maybe you were on the world team before, you come out, you're just missing that step. If you're not at that level, it's not what it is. It's your mind might say you can do it, but you can't do it. But then when you get against somebody, you just came out of college, even just coming out of college, that's a man playing against a kid.
Yeah.
And these are men, and these are the best in the world. And, the Six Nations alone, there's probably 500 nations out there, 500 tribes. We can't just go out west and pick somebody up from Oklahoma. We have 3 non-passport players. So what that means is if they're not from the Six Nations and they can't prove lineage or are on that roll, or their mothers are, from that reserve and they can't prove it, they are non-issued passports. So we can go to somebody who lives, say, for instance, like Kyle Jackson's going to be on our team, who is also a Canadian, all right? He's going to be a non-passport player. We can use 3 people that do that. Out of those 500 nations, that we can't choose from those people. Even if they could play the game, we can't choose from them. So that draw, they think if they see somebody who's really athletic, and we'd love to have that person, but there's only 3 of those people we can pick.
But the amazing stat that I just want to make sure that we all realize is that there's only 1,500 to 2,000 players playing in the Six Nations of all those reservations, and yet there are 30 or 40 world-class level players. Think about that. Like, Greenwich Youth Lacrosse. Greenwich Youth Lacrosse has 1,500 players. That's Greenwich. That's one town in Connecticut. And you guys have about 1,500 players, and yet you've got Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer, even in one given era. Now, there's definitely more now than it was probably 20 years ago. Because,
absolutely.
But I don't know why. We can talk about that. But people that are listening to this conversation, you need to think about this. We have in our country, the U.S., we've got, 750,000 lacrosse players. And then, you put whatever number you want on what might be world class, a couple hundred, 300, whatever you want to call that. I don't know how we would just define that exactly, right?
Yeah.
But then you look at in Canada, they've got about 100,000.
Yeah.
And Canada has beaten us 2 out of the last 3 years in the World Championships. So they're obviously putting out world-class players. And you guys have, just imagine if you had, 6,000 players playing. It's a numbers game for the Iroquois now, without doubt. And you just, obviously the box background lends itself more to the offensive players, and you just need more athletes to be able to, defend and all that. We get that. But the reason why I think it's so fascinating is because it leads me on to the next question, which is that, so what, you guys have just a better development system than everybody else? You got better coaches, spending a lot more money on it? How is it that these players are coming up with such a small population getting to world-class skill? Look at Tahoka. Look at Chase Scanlon. It's one guy after another. These young guys, these older guys, the Thompsons, Dax brothers.
Yeah.
People have never even seen Audie Stats play.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know who he is. He's like in the top 5 or 10 players in the world, and he's not even going to play college lacrosse. It's mind-blowing that this has happened. How is it even possible?
Yeah, I will say this, and it's gone away, and we've talked about this before, you and I, Jay. Backyard lacrosse. Backyard lacrosse has disappeared, okay? It hasn't on the reservation, and it hasn't in the nations that we're at, in the Six Nations. Every kid and every guy who played almost makes his kid play lacrosse. And what they do, instead of being inside, now remember, most of these kids are on the poorer side, so it's kind of like, I wouldn't call it a neighborhood. I wouldn't call it, it's our neighborhood, okay? We go down to the box, and they start playing lacrosse. We play so many games with no equipment on, okay? No helmets, no gloves, wooden sticks, guys cross-checking each other. And they don't really, and they're being really competitive. And they're in the backyard trying to emulate stuff they see and what their fathers taught them. And if you get smoked with a ball, they make fun of you if it hurts you. And you go home as a baby, they won't even invite you back. They don't want you back. So the mindset changes a bit, and so does the type of training you do. Now, obviously, you're in the box and you're playing hard and kids are messing around. But if you can do this, sometimes we wouldn't have goalies. We'd hang plastic bottles in the corner of the goal. They're shooting on smaller nets. It's just about them out there trying to like I ask kids nowadays, I ask them this. I go, how many guys here ever been in a fight? And you'll look around the room, no one will raise their hand. You probably fought 10 times while you were down at the box just fooling around playing lacrosse and wrestling around and grabbing it. And I say, how many guys know how to play tag? They don't even know what that is. Does anyone ever got hit with an apple? They're like, what? I said, yeah, like apple wars. You guys never had apple wars? They're like, no. I said, you never smoked your friend with an apple and chased him in the woods and all? No. It blows my mind. They don't know what a CD looks like, or they think a record is a big giant CD. The things have changed over the years, but
yeah,
I will say this:
the Sandlot model, though.
Get back to your question. It's backyard lacrosse, and every single kid goes down to the res, and they stand around, and they shoot, and they watch their friends shoot, and oh man, I can do that, and then he tries doing it, and then oh yeah, I don't have a left hand, so I'm gonna do left. I mean, you don't even know. When I was coaching Lyle and Miles and those guys in high school, and Randy Stats and those guys, they were doing that when they were in high school. They were doing that growing up. They come around a cage and try to throw that shovel pass. Coaches would kill you if you tried to do that on a field team. What are you doing throwing the ball behind the back? You can't even play on our team. You know how many kids at IMG I get right now that come there and say, man, our coach would scream at us if we threw a behind the back pass or did that shovel shot. And what I do is I let them be creative. And that's the most – I think maybe that might be one of the biggest reasons you've seen kids on the res doing trick shots, because they were very creative and they were free to do whatever they wanted. They were free to do it. And the competition was so fierce that you couldn't be a baby. You had to learn to take it, and you had to learn to give it. And that's kind of the way, if you watch those kids play.
It's true, because like you'll see, that's whether it was Zach Miller or Lyle Thompson or Randy Stats, and they are getting the crap beat out of them, and it's like nobody's even there.
That's right.
They look, their gaze is beyond their man, as if there was nobody on them, and they're just like, watching what's going to happen next and faking.
What's the next play?
What's the next play? It's amazing. And so I've been on this. I grew up playing sandlot sports like you did. We all of us guys our age, we grew up playing all of our sports that way. And we got pretty darn good at a lot of sports that way. And the sandlot, I call it the sandlot model development. It works. And it has, other than in basketball where kids still play pickup, although that's not even as big as it was with all the AAU. And the lacrosse, I mean, people almost never play pickup lacrosse. And
never.
I've been playing a ton of it with my kids. And we went to, I told you, we went to Darius's reservation about 5 different times this past June, just playing pickup, trying to resurrect it in Tuscarora, and trying to resurrect the idea of everything from creativity to the love of the game, to competitiveness. I mean, people forget about we were on a call with Darius Kilgore a couple minutes ago, and I literally would want to beat Darius more than anything in the world. And that's like, that feeling is like competitiveness that, I feel like you lose sometimes when you're just thrown into a situation that doesn't even mean anything to you. Like when
There's no challenge.
What?
There's no challenge.
Yeah, it's just different when when it's personal. It's better. But so that sandlot model is an amazing model. But I've always thought about what I call also the pass it down model. And the pass it down model, I remember when I didn't really experience that until, I played a lot of pickup soccer. And when I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island, there was a huge population of Portuguese people, and they played pickup soccer every day in the afternoon in the summer. And I would go down and play every day. And these older guys would be like, hey, you know, man, check this out. Or I'd be like, hey, what did you do? And I started thinking about what happens in general in box lacrosse, because you get to start playing with older kids. Yep. And of course, when you play pickup games, you're playing with older kids. I also received those experiences playing summer league when I got to like senior year in high school, and I'd be playing, and Dom Starja was like, you know, I wasn't even playing for the guy yet. He was playing in the league, and you'd be having a beer after the game with your future head coach and being like, hey, like, what did you do on that play? But
the Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast is brought to you by JM3 Sports. Go to www.jm3video.com to get more information on the JM3 video assessment tool.
Talk about how the pass it down model has, because in my opinion, it's one of the most powerful teaching tools that there is, but give me your opinions on that and how it relates to developing players and kids on the reservation and stuff.
Well, I mean, just developing them alone, like I said, if you played, you made your son play. You gave him a stick when he was little. You had him going out there pretty much like you said. I think the big factor is just like the little brother is always the best one, usually for the most part, better than the rest, because he's always playing against older, tougher, stronger, more, and he's got to try harder. So when they start to do that, that's why they say, oh, you got to see his little brother. Well, he's had the most experience because he started earlier and got the most beatings, right? He was stuck in the goal. You're playing goalie. I don't want to play goalie. You're playing goalie. So that kid ended up getting tougher. Or the youngest one's your daughter. She can't play goal. Oh, well, she's not playing that. So that's kind of how it does. So just what you referred to. You go back to the box. Everyone met down at the box. Everyone started playing. If you lived in the city and you didn't have the box in your backyard, you went in the backyard. I have pictures. I think I told you this before. My son's playing out in front of our house, and people used to come by our house. We lived in kind of near Tuscarora, right off the reserve, after I moved to Buffalo. And we had a box goal out there and a hockey net out on our lawn. And people would be like, where do you live? I'd say, oh, down on this corner over here in the curve. And they go, oh, you're the one with all the lacrosse shit out there in the front lawn, and your kids are always playing. My son broke his arm in a box game, came home and had a cast put on it, and he was a lefty. And I still to this day could not believe it. I was coaching a game. He cross-checked somebody and broke his own wrist. He went and got a cast on. They fixed his wrist with it sounded like a beer can popping. The guy didn't do it. My son says, no, you don't have to give me any shots or anything. They set his arm, and the guy was looking over his shoulder at me, so my son wouldn't see him. And when he set his arm, he popped it back in, and the guy goes, I can't believe that just happened. He came home that day. That was a 2:00 game. We set his arm at 3:30 or 4 at the hospital. At 5 o'clock, he was throwing a ball off the bounce back in our front yard. We had a little steel bounce back thing that I made, piece of steel I found, I think, in a junkyard. And he was out there, and I said to my wife, is he outside shooting that ball one-handed? She goes, yeah, I think so. I go, he's got a cast on. He came out of the hospital. No, that don't happen anymore, okay? Yeah. That day he's running around. The next day he's playing one arm. He had to play goalie because we're shooting on him. We didn't have a goalie. And that was passed down like, you can't play. You got a broke arm. Oh, I can play. No, you can't. You made fun of them, and you made them play, and you made them tough. And you taught them.
I want to talk about one of the best kids you've coached as of late was Tahoka, right? And Tahoga Nanticoke grew up playing on Six Nations. You probably know the kid for a lot of years, played for you down in IMG. I asked you about this once like a year ago. This guy's got more skills in his repertoire than most people in the world, as many as anybody, more than most. And, I mean, he's world-class right now. Is he going to be on your national team?
He will be, yes.
Yeah, so here he is. He's 20 years old. Yeah. And, you're like, hey, man, he learned all that stuff playing backyard lacrosse, playing pickup. But this is where I think that the combination of the freedom to do whatever you want in a pickup game meets, hey, Lyle Thompson showed up at the box one day and he was doing this. And that's the pass it down part where like a coach doesn't usually want to tell you stuff because they're trying to win a game.
Yeah.
But the older guy that's doing it is like, yeah, I'll tell you exactly what I did because they love talking about it.
Sure.
So can you tell me a couple stories about, like, memories that you have as far as like that kind of thing? Great players teaching you or teaching Tohoga or anybody else?
I mean, just going back to when I played, I was around lacrosse all the time. I didn't really want to play it. I played football and wrestled, and I ran track. I was fast. I was probably going to get a track scholarship because I ran 100 real fast, and I had a good 40 time, and I had broken my leg playing football the last day of practice. And Oliver Hill, I don't know if you know his name, but he's pretty famous, and he grew up. He's from the Onondaga Reserve, and he came up and did a clinic one time at our school, Henniger High School, which happened to be an ice skating rink. And he's calling me Red Man. He said, if you can hit that square right there 10 times in a row and then move back, you could probably play lacrosse. And I just shot at it. I sucked at it. And I grew up around a tennis court and a handball court, so I went up there, and every single day, I even got thrown out of the park one time because I had painted a box goal on the inside wall of the handball court, and there were some real big handball players back in Syracuse back in those days. And he'd go, that little bastard right there, he went up there and drew a damn box or something on there, and we can't get it off. I used some airplane paint. I don't know where the hell I got it. I just went up there and soaked that whole wall with it. And just going there and just remembering, like, to this day, people saying about wall ball. Well, there's no walls on the reserve other than maybe, the box. So you throw it off the wall there. But if you lived in the city, like our family did, and we went back and forth every weekend, the people would just, look at you like you were nuts. But in Syracuse, because the reserve was there and it was Onondaga Nation, they knew what it was, at least, because they played it at the War Memorial. And what we would do is go down there, emulate what they did, and go home and practice it. And then when you'd see them, there wasn't clinics you went to, and you didn't go to this camp and this. There was none of that. There was go down to the reserve and play and watch what the guys did, like the Freeman Bucktooth and the group of guys that were the Onondaga Warriors back in the day. And they played other reserves, and that was the thing to do on Sunday. Go watch that game. There was fights there, and I mean, it was awesome, to go see it as a kid. And I just copied, like, Sluggo Hill. I wanted to, I liked the way his move was or something. And I would go home and try that thing 25 times. I sucked at it the first 15 of them, but then you start getting better and better. But then you go to reserve, and, there's older people playing with younger people, and they're just in a pickup game. And if your team won, you stayed on it, just like basketball. If your team lost, you got off. You played the first guy to 6. And you might play 2 games at one end, or one goal you play down there and half was out, and the ball never went out of bounds, which was another good thing. So, other than just getting, Tohoga, his brother, kind of taught him to play growing up. And, I saw him and Audie Stotts. They used to play on a team, and they were probably 9th graders or 8th graders at the time. And they were little pudgy guys at the time, and I looked at them, I go, man, these kids got really good hands. If they ever get in good shape, they're going to be sick, And one was a lefty, one was a righty, and, Audie's going to be on this team as well. And, I mean, we're going to have a who's who group, but you look at Nanico, he came down there, and he was doing stuff that some coaches don't like to do. And that's probably why he went to where he went, because the freedom was there, and, the guy is kind of laid back, and Scotty Marr, who's actually he's our offensive coordinator for the
is he? How great is that?
And Lars Tiffany's the defensive coordinator. So
there's
there's a guy who grew up in Central New York.
You grew up in Lafayette.
Played at Lafayette, was around natives all his life, played with them, played against them, played for them, coached a few. And Scotty's coached a few. I figured, what's the best fit? You got guys that are doing it now in college. He's an offensive guy. He's a defensive guy. And
can't beat that. You
can't beat it, right? And plus they get it. They get it. There's some guys that don't get it. You can't coach those kids because they feel that they're not structured enough, or and one thing I always told our guys, if you're not turning the ball over, you're not playing the way we play, because you can't do it perfect all the time.
Right.
So you gotta be able to accept, okay, I might lead the league in turnovers, but I'm also going to lead the league in points per game, because the way we score and how fast we play. So that mindset, I try to do that to this day. We did it at Syracuse. We did it for the Iroquois. I've been playing that way all my life. We did it in a box. I coached that way. And, I just feel that, maybe that was because the way we grew up, getting back to that thing you were talking about, Sandlot. I can tell you every single Saturday or Sunday, we would go out in my road on concrete, and there was a bus route there, and we would play tackle football in the street. Absolutely. Every Saturday, Sunday, in the winter, slush balls get smoked into there was pipes on the side of the road, and there was telephone poles. You put whatever pads you had on, knee pads, arm pads, or we played hockey in the road just like you see on TV. Game on, game off. We did that every single week. Kill the guy with the ball in the park. We would go play kids in different parks and kick the shit out of them because we were so rough. And people would be like, there's something wrong with those guys, man. Don't play those kids from Douglas Street. That's what they used to tell us. And they go, they're playing tackle football right now in the street. Like I wore a Carhartt jacket or maybe a couple, pairs of pants. I remember I had wool pants. I went to the Army and Navy store and we picked those up. And my mom was like, how come the knees and the elbows are tore out of these things? I said, Ma, it's kind of tough. We're falling down on concrete. We're playing on a road. I mean, a bunch of times it was snowing out there, but for the most part, we played tackle football literally in the damn street.
Hey, tell me the story, and then as a grand finale to this, you got to tell the story.
I know exactly what you're going to ask me about.
Tell the story when you fought a bear. This is maybe the greatest story of all time. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, one I'm not real proud of, but it's a story for sure. Back in the day, they used to have a bear that you could wrestle, and I knew nothing about this. I just
State Fair in New York, something.
State Fair, yep. And they used to have a 10-by-10 cage. Maybe it was a little bigger. I don't know. The bear had the advantage, okay, and he was a trained veteran. And if you're ever
had the advantage, eh?
Exactly. And although he had a muzzle and he had no claws and he couldn't bite you, he was a bear. Okay, and I don't care. They still stink and they still sound the same and they're still faster than any human there is and they're stronger than any human there ever is. And I had gone to a thing with some football players and we were watching this and they were all fired up and we were, had a few beverages. Now remember, 18 was the drinking age then. So we were all out of high school, 18 years old. I think, I don't know, maybe I was.
This is before you got to Syracuse?
It was while I was at Syracuse. And just at that time, I think maybe my freshman year. And, I did martial arts all my life. And, I wrestled and gotten a few fisticuffs in my day. And they were like, Red, you got to wrestle the bear. And I'm like, I'm absolutely not going in that ring. I don't care what you guys do. And, as you were watching it, all you had to do was last a minute, okay? And I had watched 30 people or 20 people, and you paid, I think it was at the time, $25, and you wrestled the bear. And you didn't really wrestle him. You just got the shit beat out of you by the bear. And I had seen literally 20 big men last about seconds, like 3 to 5 seconds, because this thing came at you, and the guy talked to it in German, and he had a long leash on it, and it had a harness on it with a muzzle, and it was about 300 pounds, and it was probably 6 foot tall. And here I am, 5'10", 190. And I'm pretty strong, pretty fast, but that's a bear. And my boys were with me for a football team, a couple Syracuse guys, and they said, you can beat that bear, Red. And as they kept telling me more and more, and they were feeding me more beer, So I'm thinking, well, maybe I can beat this thing. Them guys are doing it all wrong, and I'm trying to think what I would do. And probably after maybe the 8th or 9th or 10th or 12th, I don't know, beer I had, that they were buying, obviously, to get me primed up to go in there because they knew I would do it. And they go, Red, it's your turn, man. And I'm like, what do you mean? And and I think, I'm not sure, they put up the money, obviously. And they put me in there, and I went in that thing. And I'm not kidding you. You had to last a minute, and at 10 seconds, it felt like 2 hours. This thing came at me, and the only thing you couldn't do, they said, was all you had to do was like knock it off its feet to win, or last a minute. So I went in there, and that thing came at me and swatted at me one time, and I'm telling you, I felt just the wind of it hitting my head, and it was like instant concussion. and I got out of the way, and it was around 20 seconds. They were cheering. My friends were going nuts, and they were losing, and I'm running around and ducking, and and it's getting mad, because it cuts off the ring really well, and the guy's telling it what to do, and you don't know what he's saying because he's talking German to it. And then all of a sudden, it came at me and kind of like missed me, and I cracked this thing right in the jaw, like out of reaction, and it started bleeding. And the guy said something to it, and I looked up, and there was a timer up there, and the thing went, and it started freaking going nuts, and it started mauling me, and I kind of got out of the way, and it got me in the corner, and the guy was like, and it was like a safe word of like, I don't know, I forgot what it was, the pots and pans or something, and that guy acted like he didn't hear what I was saying, and that bear was on top of me, and I looked up, and my friend started throwing beers in the stands and throwing them at him. Go! Everyone's crying, laughing, and I got over the corner, and I was a mess, and the thing was on top of me, and it was trying to, you could smell the stench of its breath, and it was trying to mangle me, but that guy let it go on me. And then when I got out, they were like, he won, and my friends were all throwing shit. I caused a melee, and it was right outside outside of where the racetrack was, and people to this day, even like some of my friends were there, and they're like, "Red, that was the nuttiest thing I've ever seen a human do."
That's got to be like your greatest athletic achievement, to be able to be in the ring with the bear for that long.
And you know what's funny, Jamie? I had a gun in the woods, and I hunt a lot in Salamanca, and I saw a bear from I don't know, 30 yards away, and I had a gun, and I was more nervous with a gun in my hand and a bear coming at me with some cubs than I was that night, because I think I had the liquid courage. So that always helps you. But I did pretty well for about 30 seconds. Which, by the way, if anyone's ever gonna wrestle a bear, you want to try to move faster than him. But in a 10x10, it's like you're basically in a bathroom trying to get away from something. And that thing swatted me one time and threw me against the fence, it was like actually a rope. And I went flying off that and kind of did like the old wrestler moves. It went underneath and ducked him, and I almost got him, and I kind of drilled him a little bit. But that punch in the nose, and he started bleeding a little bit, and he kind of licked his nose, and he went nuts. Like he thought he was going to murder somebody. And that guy said some stuff to me, and I can tell you what, their eyes get big when they get nuts, and they are fast, brother. Faster than the thing. I mean, it's the craziest.
Oh my God. That is the greatest story ever. Well, listen, hey, Red, thanks so much for coming on the podcast and talking lacrosse with us. It was really amazing to listen to the stories and to really think about, why the Native Americans have developed into such incredible players. And I think people are interested because there's so many people that, they would love their kids to have an opportunity to be as good as these kids that are just growing up and doing it in their backyards. And I think what people aren't really realizing is that you have more control over it than you think. You don't have to necessarily always sign up for, every coach, because you can do it in the backyard and you can just get better. And it's a love of the game, and it's a competitiveness that people forget about, and all this stuff. It's amazing. So thanks for sharing that. Good luck in the World Games. It's going to be really fun to watch you guys compete. It's going to be awesome. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, James, the other thing was, before you go, obviously you mention it, and you have the idea behind it. In order to ask those type of questions you're asking, you obviously get it. So your son plays box lacrosse. He's got his ring right now, right, from last year.
You got his ring.
Exactly. And I just FaceTimed with him and Chase Scanlon, who's going to be playing on actually this weekend in the Under Armour game down there in Baltimore, and the one Tahoga played in last year. So just getting back to what you said, the fundamentals were always there. Okay, the repetition and the toughness came from stuff that we learned and getting passed down. And it was okay to get injured, and it was okay to get slashed. And just like you said about Randy, it was as if no one's bothering you, even though it's getting it. Where today the game is turned to more of, even with the refereeing, it's just you can't touch anybody, you can't hit anybody. Back then, obviously, the game was played differently. But to this day, we still have these kids playing at this high level, like you just mentioned, those players, and Miles and Lyle. And going back to his stats, Randy Stats played for me in the Dick's Tournament of Champions way back in the day. He had made a move, and I heard it from the sidelines. He blew his knee out, ACL. That kid played the whole game, and the next game, and the game after that, with a blown out ACL, and he knew it, and he says, "You're not taking me out." That's the type of kid he is and the type of player he was and still is. And now he's a man, obviously, and he's a man. He's one of the toughest people you'll ever play against. But he never thought for 1 second to take him out. And we knew his knee was gone. You know, it kind of seems like that's going on right now with Connor Fields.
Right.
You know, that's the type of player. That's the type of kid. Connor Fields, I knew him when he was a little kid. I used to be at his dad's place in Tuscarora, and he was right on the edge of the reserve. The dad's bar was right down the street from Tuscarora Reserve.
You grew up playing that?
Yeah, and I knew him when he was a little kid growing up. But we got to go back to that, just like what you're saying. That backyard lacrosse and that mentality, just like you said. The coaching. The coaches are the parents. The parents are the coaches. If they didn't play the game, at least make the kids tougher. That should be the message. Make the kids tougher and go out in the backyard and get out of the house. Because when you were poor and you lived on a reserve, you weren't playing video games. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
To this day, I mean, those kids still go down in the box and play, and they grind it out. Now they have a lot nicer place there. They have 2 arenas on Dogger Reserve. Yeah. But you go down there anytime, people are out there in that old box playing all the time. And it's just like it reminds me of Rocky. You know what I mean? That's the old Rocky gym. Or you go to the flashy one, you know.
Apollo Creed, flashy gym.
Exactly. So in order for you to understand that and ask that question, you must get it, because a lot of people don't even look at it in those terms, you know. And
think of it.
And exactly. So I applaud you for even asking the questions about it, because I've never been asked about it like that. And we don't really go tell the story to people unless they ask about it. We're not out there bragging, this is why we're good and this is what we do and this is what. No.
It's like bragging about, like, living.
Exactly. This is part of our culture. This is what we eat. This is the creator's game, man. We share this game. We play with a good mind, and we want people to enjoy it. And it's probably, if not the best, one of the best games you could ever play. And it's still, to this day, the purest sport. And you can ask any kid that plays and leaves their other sport. They have more fun playing lacrosse than any sport they ever do.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's the message to me, is just play this game with a good mind. And you know, I just coached this weekend some of my club teams playing kids. The coach came up to us, "How many kids on the list, coach, are committed?" I said, "None. Why would I bring all committed kids to a tournament I'm trying to get them committed at?" And the coach goes, "All these kids aren't committed?" I go, "No." He goes, "You got to be kidding me." I go, "No. Start signing them up." Well, you know, so to me, just the style of play, the way they were brought up, the backyard lacrosse, it's got to come back. It's still on the reserve. Everybody every nation, 6 nations, all our nations, we do that nonstop with our kids. The kids always got a stick in their hand. You know, they play video games too. I'm not going to say they don't.
Sure.
But you know, that's part of the culture. But our culture is play lacrosse and play with a good mind and share this game. We lost games on that and that thing. I said, I don't care if you lose. I care if you try hard and if you play hard. I don't care if you drop the ball. I care if you don't pick it up.
Yeah.
I don't care if you miss a shot. I care if you back it up. I care if you go hustle. That's what I care about. Don't worry about that other stuff. It don't matter.
I believe that the true nature of pickup sports with your friends, like we said, the competitive side of it, the creative side of it, love of the game, the combination of those 3 things are the most powerful thing that anybody can have. And the great irony is that it's right in front of you and nobody realizes that they're traveling the world to try to get good when they could actually do it at home. And I've been doing that. You know, it's something that I've been making a point of, and I feel like I'm on a soapbox telling everybody about it but it's the best kept secret going, and people don't realize, you know, what it can do. But hey, Red, thank you so much for your time. Good luck in the World Games.
Pleasure.
And we'll get you back on the Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast someday, I hope.
Love being here, man.
All right, brother. Take care.
Thank you. See ya.
Hey, see you, Red.
The Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast is brought to you by JM3 Sports. Go to www.jm3video.com to get more information on the JM3 video assessment tool.